Check. Okay, is that better? Can you hear
Yeah,
everything?
yeah.
Okay, sounds good. All right, we'll start over. All right, so I have my guest here, Sam Adato, new friend of mine. We just got done filming a video for you. You're the owner of the drum shop on West 11th.
Yes, Sam Adato's Drum Shop.
Yes, sir. If you haven't been in there, definitely go and check it out. They got lots of good stuff in there. Let's see. I was trying to think, where should we start? I was gonna say, funny. This morning, it's Monday morning. It's kind of a working man's podcast.
I'm a working man.
Yes, sir. I got a little bit of a late start, but we were able to make it happen. I was kind of say maybe just talk a little bit about that too. Like, it's interesting, like growing up in different time eras. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm one of the last generation to get to experience growing up without like the internet and cell phones and stuff in your face all the time. And so it was just kind of funny. It kind of reminded me of that. You know, we were communicating this morning via email, and just kind of made it happen no matter what.
There's, I'm born in 1960, so I'm 61 now, and there's plenty of people my age and older that have their smartphones and all that. I'm just a real low techie kind of guy, man. I'm not a phone guy. I don't have a smartphone. I still have my old flip top, and I do plenty of interaction with people all day long at the shop, coming in or, answering the phone. And I do most of my internet stuff. I have just like a little iPad or a little Android thing. I don't do anything. The smartphone, just for me, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I try to stay away from Facebook as much as I can, although I do my Instagram posts at the shop showing pictures of customers buying things. So I don't know. I'm just like an old school email dude still. I do text, but when I go home, I turn everything off. I just unplug. So, and then when I'm in the shop, people call me so no texting, pretty much. People just call me, and old school phone.
Yeah,
landline.
I love that.
Landline.
When you busted out the flip phone, I was like, dude, that's awesome. Good for you, man.
Flip phone,
I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah, pretty much, so there it is, yeah.
Right on, man. Well, cool. Let's see. We'll get going here. I was say, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Manhattan Beach, California, by the beach, and had a pretty good, I didn't surf, but a lot of body surfing and just hanging out at the beach in the summers, and a pretty good place to grow up for sure.
That's awesome. I'm not so familiar. So which part of California is that? Is that northern,
South Bay area, L.A., L.A. County, L.A.
Cool.
County.
Excellent, man.
Probably 40-minute drive from Hollywood,
Nice. And you said, you're born in the 60s, so growing up
born in 1960,
in that area, that time must have been
it was great. I mean, when I was like I remember Beatlemania. I was a little kid, and then lots of kids on the block, same age and older.
Yeah.
So I was exposed to, of course, the Beatles, and then Hendrix, Zeppelin, Sabbath, all that kind of stuff at a pretty early age, and it really captivated my soul. I mean, my next door neighbor, I was probably 8 years old at the time, and I'm just taking a guess now, he was probably 14, and I was a cool little kid next door, and I remember him blasting, all along the Watchtower, Electric Ladyland, Hendrix, and Led Zeppelin 1 and 2, and it just, it just went into my blood, and that was it from that day on. And that's the music I still listen to. That's
so cool, man. Yeah, that's one of the things that I really love and appreciate about you is like you're a drummer through and through. Like, that's who you are. That's what you do. I mean, that's literally your job. You're a professional.
I stick to what I do best.
Yeah, that's
I don't
awesome.
venture out, outside of the box too much. I just, I find what I do best, and I kind of just stick to that. And it works for me.
Yeah, that's excellent, man. I hear you there. I'm kind of trying to follow that path as well, just trying to
just whatever
what
works for
best.
you. Everybody's different. That's what makes the world go round.
Yeah,
everybody's different. It's what works for me. I just stick with what I know. People come into my shop, and although electronic drums are very popular right now, I don't carry them because I stick to what I know. My niche is refurbishing used and vintage stuff, and the whole electronic thing, which is great, totally serves a purpose for people that need to have that. And people come in, I'm just like, well, I just don't do that,
Yeah, fair enough, man. Yeah, fair enough.
Nothing wrong with it at all. I mean, they're great. Electronics are great for people, but so I just, once again, I stick with true to what I do best.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have some experience too. Actually, I worked in the drum shop at Guitar Center for a while, and I've just learned so much working there. Like a lot about tuning drums, just because you get to do it so much, and what's available and parts, and just so you learn so much being around it every day. And it's definitely valuable, and that's cool that you get to do that, and you're so passionate about it.
Every day.
So when did you start your shop?
Opened the shop in 1993, coming off of 5 years of working for another store. So yeah, I grew up in Manhattan Beach, moved to Santa Cruz, California, another beach town.
Santa Cruz is awesome.
In 1984, and started working at a shop there called the Musicians Trading Post. I was the drum dude there.
Okay.
And kind of make a long story short, I had moved to San Francisco with a band I was in called Wrecking Machine, and 1989, and we were in the definitely in the thrash metal scene there. We did a lot of good shows, and
Nice.
I continued to work at the drum shop in Santa Cruz. So I was going back and forth for 5 years, but I decided that I could do it on my own. And about right around 1991. I created a business plan, and 1993, I made it happen. I opened my shop in San Francisco in 1993.
Wow, that's so cool.
And stuck to the sort of template that was the drum shop in Santa Cruz at the Musicians Trading Post, which was pretty much buy, sell, and trade. Not much new stuff. I was really into refurbishing drums, and my specialty was vintage, and that was right around the time vintage gear was really starting to explode. So I got right in there right at that time, and then it really took off right away.
That's awesome.
Really in San Francisco. Of course, I had a great location.
Yeah, a lot of those especially Ludwig, I feel like that brand is really like held up. Now it's like such a collector's item. Like they're so sought after.
Yeah. All the vintage stuff, Ludwig is definitely number one. Slingerland, Rogers, Gretsch, Camco, Ludwig still holds probably is the most sought after of vintage drums, and holding its value and all that.
Yeah, Slingerland and Rogers, you don't really see a lot of, like, I feel like nowadays, or at least I haven't. And so when you do see something and it's in good shape, it's like, whoa, like that's a collector's item for sure.
Yeah, check out samadotosdrums.com, my website. You can see some of that kind of stuff. I used to have way more vintage stuff in the 90s and into the 2000s, and I'm pretty lazy as far as going out and seeking out stuff. Stuff used to just come my way, and it still does a little bit, but as things started selling and not as many things coming through the door with, Craigslist and eBay and Reverb and all that kind of stuff, I still have some vintage stuff, but not nearly as much as I used to.
I see. Yeah, right on.
But it's still my favorite.
Okay.
Old school, made in USA,
So
more handmade stuff.
I was going to ask you, what got you into drumming? When did you get your start? What was your first kit like? Let's hear about all that.
Well, okay, so, being into music at an early age, I remember I was in 5th grade, went over to this kid's house, and he had a drum set. And the drums, even though, Jimi Hendrix is my, musical idol, even though, Hendrix, obviously guitar player, the drums always stuck out whenever I listened to music. So I went over to this kid's house when I was in 5th grade, and there was this I think it was a white Rogers kit.
Nice.
And I was just fascinated. He let me play him, and I knew I could play. I sat down. I could play a beat, at that first go around. And I was just captivated. So I went home and told Mom and Dad I wanted a drum set, and they was, no.
Yeah.
And no meant no. So I continued. I went over to the kid's house a couple more times. He said, "Hey, if you do my math homework, you can play again." I'm like, "Sure, no problem." I was good at math. I whipped out his homework. And then that ended. I don't know whatever happened. I stopped going over to his house. And then, make a long story short, I was 17, and I was working at the time. I bought my own.
Right on.
I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I bought an old Mercury made in Japan drum set, and played on those for a while, and knew that I needed to upgrade. And I found a Ludwig 1966 Ludwig Blue Sparkle double bass drum set. And of course, I was into Mitch Mitchell and John Bonham and all that kind of stuff. But Cozy Powell, playing with Jeff Beck and then Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, was the double bass guy, and I really liked his style. So I'm like, I think I want to play double bass.
Yeah.
And that was my Ludwig 66 Blue Sparkle Ludwig double bass kit.
Wow.
And then I added on to it, and met this dude. I wanted to add on to it. I met this dude back in the day before Craigslist and all that, and you wanted to buy used drums or sell or whatever, and you looked in the paper.
Yeah.
And in LA, they had the recycler. So I answered an ad, and it turns out, I mean, I think it's fate. It turns out it was this guy. His name was Joe Northern, and he was very much into vintage drums. And I didn't even realize that I bought a vintage drum kit, and I wanted to add on to it. And he had tons of stuff. And anyways, we ended up being friends, and he ended up giving me lessons. And he recovered a couple drums to match my Blue Sparkle kit. And then we're friends to this day. So he got me into the vintage drum thing and all about tuning and how to refurbish. And that's what really, really sent me on my path, was meeting him.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. I got kind of a similar start. It's funny. I think it's kind of like maybe just kind of the way it goes with drummers, because it's such a loud, expensive, large, noisy instrument.
That's where the electronics come in these days.
Yeah, absolutely. You can practice, in your apartment or whatever, and not bug too many people. But outside of the clunking of the pads, it's pretty quiet. So. But yeah, I got kind of a similar start. I had a friend whose dad had a drum kit, and would go over to his place and get to play on that sometimes. And then just like right away, super captivated by it.
Yeah.
I took some classes in high school. There was like this hand drumming class that was kind of showing like the basics of like rhythm and beats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so picked it up there and got to play the drum set in school. And so, just kind of, you play when you can, and then when you get your first drum kit, that moment you're just...
And pretty much for me, when I bought my first kit, I knew this dude that was playing guitar, and I mean, we started playing right away. I mean, pretty much the day I bought my drum set, I went over to his place, and we started jamming right away, and that was spring of 1978, so we're talking, about now 44 years ago, and I've never stopped.
That's
I've
awesome.
literally never stopped playing.
Yeah.
I've been in bands from that day until this day. I've continued to play in bands, and so yeah, there you go. And then opening the shop in '93, pretty much took off right away. Being in the heart of San Francisco, and here I am all these years later.
Yeah.
Still doing it.
Yeah, right place, right time to start something like that. I feel like it's a good environment for a thing like that. So that's cool that you were able to seize that when you did.
Yeah,
no doubt. Let's talk about like some of the bands that you've been in, some of your favorite experiences, and let's maybe just go down that road a little bit.
Well, like I say, the first guy I started jamming with was really into Hendrix, and we did a lot of. There's no singing. We just pretty much jammed, and then jammed in his barn. I got kind of tired of that, so I took my drums home and started really knuckling down on the practice, and ended up joining this band, an original band, hard rock band, around 1980. They lost their drummer, looking for somebody. The guitar player was a friend of my brother's. He happened to come over to my house one day to visit my brother, and I was practicing out on the garage, and he was like, "Whoa, dude, man, we need a drummer, and we need you." I'm like, "Okay, just come on over and jam." And boom, I got the job, and that was all originals, kind of hard rock kind of stuff, which is, that's my bread and butter.
Yeah.
And started playing some gigs. I mean, we played in Hollywood, played a couple shows at the Troubadour, a couple other things around LA, and that was 1980. And they started going in a really pop direction, and I wanted to stay hard, so I left that band and started jamming with some other friends of mine around 81, 82, and playing more original stuff, more in the lines of what I liked. And at that time, like Rainbow, Judas Priest, Rush, Scorpions kind of stuff. And played with those guys for a little while. We did some more stuff in Hollywood. Then I got tired of LA, and I moved to Santa Cruz. And moving to Santa Cruz, I met these dudes. And, it was kind of a step back for me, these younger kids. And just being new to the town, I just wanted someone to play with. They were playing a bunch of cover tunes and hard rock cover tunes. I'm like, okay, I need somebody to play with. We'll make a long story short, that ended up evolving into a band called Wrecking Machine. And we started playing, thrash metal, where those guys used to listen to, and that they introduced me to that whole, Slayer, Anthrax, Exodus, kind of Death Angel, those kind of metal bands, and we went in that direction. So we started writing a bunch of songs, playing around Santa Cruz, and we started venturing what you call over the hill into San Jose and up into San Francisco. Started playing at like the Stone. And then we figured, we need to get into the scene. So we moved from Santa Cruz to San Francisco in '89. And even before that, we started playing clubs around there. We actually opened for Slayer, we opened for Death Angel, Exodus, cool. Forbidden, all those kind of killer bands, and got into the scene. And all the sort of local San Francisco people in that scene really welcomed us with open arms. And we never did get signed, but we played tons of killer shows on killer stages opening for all these bands. And it kind of ran its course around '92. Everything was changing, and the chemistry of the band was changing. And right around the same time, like I said, I was was in Wrecking Machine, and I continued to work at the Trading Post in Santa Cruz, going back and forth. So while being in Wrecking Machine, this guitar player that was working at the store was into surf music, like Dick Dale and Adventures and stuff like that.
Right on.
They needed a drummer. Hey, Sam, you want to play drums? And I'm like, oh, well, what is it? Surf band. And I'm like, oh, didn't really know what surf was. So they gave me a cassette tape of that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, I really dig it, man. It's like, pretty up tempo.
Exactly.
And lots of guitar. Everything's all about the guitar. I'm like, okay, so being with Wrecking Machine, going back and forth from San Francisco to Santa Cruz every week for I joined that band in '89 or '90, and I was playing killer shows, surf shows. We've actually opened for Dick Dale a couple times.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
And that was a great experience, opening me up to a whole, different genre of music. And that ran its course too, but, I was just playing and playing and playing. And then, so Wrecking Machine, ended up, folding its doors. And then I played in a bunch of other bands. I played in this band that was actually kind of a rock rap band.
That's cool.
And joined another surf band in the mid '90s called the Berserkers. And after that, I was in a band called Cellophane Solution, kind of a punk rock band. And we actually ended up doing the whole Warped Tour.
You were telling me a little bit about that.
1997, yeah. Ron Wilkerson was an old school BMX bike rider. He had a bike team sponsored by Vans. So he got the band to go on the whole '97 tour. And a Warped Tour, we did every show, over, probably 33 shows all across the States, mainly on the side stages. Nobody really knew who we were. And then that exposed me to a whole other new genre of music, all that sort of punk rock, sort of pop punk metal, No Effects, and No Effects and Lagwagon and Pennywise, some really, really killer bands.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then after that, just a bunch of little here's another band called Rainbow Bridge. When I was still in Santa Cruz, there was a dudes looking for a drummer. And they played Hendrix style of music, but mostly originals. And we ended up doing gigs opening for like Montrose, Robin Trower, stuff like that. A killer club in Santa Cruz called the Catalyst. And
I've seen a show there before.
Yeah, great.
Cruz,
Great. That band actually, the bass player ended up passing away. Ronnie Rainbow, man, it was really sad. My brother stepped in and started playing bass, and then we started doing shows up in San Francisco when I started having a little more taking things into my own hands as far as booking. Matter of fact, I was able to book, we shortened the name from Rainbow Bridge to The Bridge, and I actually managed to land a slot opening for Deep Purple at the Warfield in 2007.
Nice.
My last show in San Francisco was opening for Yngwie at the Fillmore in 2011. So did a lot of good things with the Bridge, recorded 3 records with the Bridge. I actually, funded all 3 of those, went into a recording studio, mixed, produced, and didn't engineer, but I mixed and produced 3 records for that band. Another short stint was with a band called Sticks and Stones. 2 guitar players, one guitar player being Gretchen Menn, who plays in Zepparella to this day still.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've seen them before. They're great.
Zepparella, yeah. And we recorded a record with Sticks and Stones. We couldn't find a bass, couldn't really, really great songs, great guitar players. We couldn't find a bass player, nor could we find an appropriate singer. So we ended up being 2 guitars and drums. And we did many, many killer shows with that band, including one show opening for Johnny Winter in his later stages. And I'm a huge Johnny Winter fan. since the early 70s in his sort of blues hard rock days. And it was quite an honor to be able to share a stage with him. I was actually able to go back to his little bus back there, and he was the only one in there. I knocked on the door, and I guess his road manager. I said, "Hey, I'm the drummer in the opening band. Do you think I might be able to talk to Johnny?" And she says, "Just a minute." She comes back, opens the door. I walk in there, and there's Johnny sitting right at the table there. He had a marijuana pipe on his head. And it's well known that he was a substance abuser for many years, but he had cleaned himself up. But he had a marijuana pipe there, and he was sitting all by himself. I introduced myself, and he was so gracious and cool to me. And I talked about guitars and some shows that he did in his earlier days. He was so cool to me. I have a really soft spot in my heart for good old Johnny Winter. Rest in peace. And that was with Sticks and Stones opened that show. And then, things came to a head in San Francisco, and I ended up moving here to Eugene.
Yeah.
Wanted to get out of the big city, and came up to Eugene. I'd been here before many years ago, and I really liked the environment, and I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a go. And when I set my mind to do something, I do it. And I moved here and bought a house, sold my house down there, bought a house here, and brought the whole shop and opened my shop here. And that was 9 years ago.
Wow. Very cool. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. How what brought you up here? But yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah, well, part of it was many reasons for leaving the great city of San Francisco. But I was kind of tired of the summertime cold, foggy summers, and I knew that it was really warm up here in the summertime, and I really like the environment, all the trees, and
the summertime is gorgeous.
Just the beauty, and the rain doesn't bother me at all. So I packed everything up and I did it. I moved, and here I am.
Awesome, man.
Here we are, 2022.
Yeah, very cool. I was gonna say, back at the kind of the beginning of that little section there, I kind of started in like hard rock and stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I really appreciate about that kind of music is just like the chops that are required to play a lot of that stuff. You really have to, I feel like, have a good base of limb separation and just syncopation
yes,
and speed
independence.
And
yeah, but you know what? Yeah, and I'm super basic. I mean, I stick with what I do best, and it's just basic, hard rock style of drumming. And all there's drummers today that just blow my mind. And you look at them and you're like, how do they do that? And I'm like, okay, well, it's not in my wheelhouse to do that kind of stuff. So I just stick with what I do best, and that's just straight up hard rock drumming.
Hey, nothing wrong with that, man. Yeah, that must be interesting, like, to see the evolution of drumming from when you started to where it is now.
Oh, wow.
Because just
absolutely.
from when I started to where it is now, like it's evolved, and so it's crazy to think what that must be like to see that much evolution of the instrument.
And everything you can just go on YouTube and pick up stuff on back then. You just took lessons or watched a old videotape or something like that, and or read learn to read music. But now you can everything is available at the touch of a finger. I'm largely self-taught, a lot of YouTube videos and things like that, and so that that's been a big tool for me, watching a lot of videos and stuff. But I mean, can't imagine what it was like to try and learn drums, just based, putting a tape in and just trying to copy what you hear. listen to a record or a tape and just playing along with it.
Yeah.
Which you still do now, but now you can visually, see it happening, see them doing it.
Exactly.
Just touch the button and back up and forward, back, forward. And back then you just, listen to headphones and do it.
Totally. Yeah. And, nowadays it's so much easier to if there's a section or whatever you're trying to learn, to just single out and loop that one piece. Whereas if you're on an old piece of technology, you might have to start from the beginning of the song to make it all the way up to that one section you're trying to work on.
And right now you can actually separate all the individual instruments.
That's true too.
Right.
Yeah.
You can isolate the drum tracks and just go over and over. And, you see these kids now, 9-year-old, 8-year-old kids or whatever, playing, outrageous things. And shoot, I can't even, after all these years of drumming, I can't even do that.
I know. It's crazy when I see these 6-year-old, 9-year-old drummers or whatever. I'm like, like good for them. I wish I would have started that early because.
But you know, you can only do what you do. Do what you do and do
Yeah.
it the best you can do. And you know, your own style. You take everything that's out there and you just, you know, do it in your own way. You know, and your own style will come out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And then you know, it sounds like you've played a lot of different genres too over the years, and you know, I think it's important to try and fill those gaps as a player. You know, learning from all different areas of music so that you're not, you know, so one dimensional, that you can play in many different musical situations. You know, learning, like I said, I started out like playing heavy metal and stuff like that, and I still love that. But I also play in a reggae band, and you know, I'm messing around with some this hip hop group now, and just trying to learn from all different areas and learn how to play all different styles.
Yeah, and that's great. But having said that too, but for me, I kind of stick kind of within a certain area though. In other words, like you, that's great for you, and everybody's different, right? And you hear drummers, you know, that, well, I want to, you know, they play rock, and you know, I want to, you know, I play a little jazz too, a little this, a little of that. Me, even though I've played in, you know, like a thrash band or kind of a hip hop, but it was more rock. And then even the punk rock band I played, once I played in that, this sounded more like a hard rock band than a, you know, punk rock band. And so I kind of, you know, stick with kind of in that thing. I know jazz isn't in my heartbeat, so I don't even go out, you know, go there.
Yeah, jazz.
Some people say, "Oh, it's good to know. It's good to know that. It's good to know jazz. Good to know this." I can play a pretty good blues shuffle, though.
Yeah.
You know, so, but anyways, you know, I stick with what I know, and it's in my heart. Stick with what's in your heart.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, and stick with, you know, what's interesting to you too.
And that's what's interesting. Yeah, that's what comes out. That's what I still listen to.
Yeah, that's what's gonna. I feel like that's what's gonna keep you playing and keep you engaged.
I hear friends of mine say, you know, they'll come into the shop and I'll be listening to some old school, you know, something, you know, Mountain or, you know, whatever, Deep Purple, and they say, "Gosh, I haven't heard that in a long time." I'm like, "Why not?
Yeah,
why not?
Yeah, just because it's old,
there.
You know, I didn't stop
why
listening
not?
to
God,
it.
that's great stuff. I haven't listened to. Why not?
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I love going back and listening to you know, stuff that I used to listen to when I was a teenager, or you know, that kind of thing.
Right, and I do believe too, like say your parents, you know, as time went on and when you were kids, what did your parents listen to? They may have listened to some contemporary stuff, but the main thing they listened to was their favorite stuff when they were growing up.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that now. I'm kind of like my parents now, where there are some new things that I like. However, I just find myself wanting to listen to that music.
Sure.
I just find myself, it just makes me happy. Anywhere, you know, from, you know, say Beatles up to late 70s, you know, kind of stuff. That's in my wheelhouse. It makes me feel good. And I try to keep up on some newer stuff, but that's what I keep on going back to.
I'm noticing myself kind of in that same situation too. It's funny, like when it comes to like the newest, you know, pop or whatever that comes out, a lot of times I'm kind of late to it, you know, by the time I hear it. And you know, it's funny, like and like I said, listening back, you know, to stuff that I listened to when I was a teenager and you know, in high school, and so yeah, largely, I mean, that's a, you know, a big part of those things. Those songs are a big part of the library of music that I know in my head, and you know, I'm always trying to find new stuff to listen to, new and old. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. You know, I feel like maybe there's only so much you can really take in as far as like maybe like space on your mental hard drive, you know what I mean? It's, you know, so
yeah, everybody's different.
And there's constantly new music coming out.
Constantly, you know, just, you know, and whatever works for everybody's individual, whatever, and you know, can't pay it. And then the older I get, you can't necessarily pay attention to what people may think of you.
Yeah.
For what you like or what you listen to or what you do or whatever. You just got to do what makes you feel good.
Yeah, that's excellent, man. Yeah, and that's
block out any negativity, opinionated stuff, this or that, and just what makes you feel good, what inside.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and that's really what's going to keep, like I said before, keep you engaged and you know, keep you going, keep you interested. So that's really great. Let's see, where do we go from here? I'm sorry, I'm a little unprepared just because you know, the shuffle this morning, and I like to come in a little bit more prepared with topics to talk about and stuff. Let's see where we're at on time. We're doing about an hour here. Let's see, we're at 31 minutes. So
It's going by fast.
It is, man. Yeah, it's kind of like a time warp once you get in here and get to talking.
Especially with me.
Yeah.
Time warp with me.
I've kind of noticed
What kind
that.
of shirt am I wearing? Let's see. Let me unbutton my thing. Let's see. What do we got here today?
Is it Black Sabbath? Right on.
First album.
Nice. Yeah, I noticed
I remember when that record came out, man.
A lot of the posters and things that you have on the shop, the walls at your shop.
Yeah.
You know, you must have been accumulating those through
a long
time.
Yeah,
and you know, a lot of them look like real, you know, show flyers and photographs and things that you've taken. And so yeah, there's a lot of good stuff up there. I remember seeing one of you playing a clear blue Ludwig drum kit.
Yeah. A guy came in. That's one of the benefits of owning your own drum shop. A guy came in one day and he had a Ludwig blue Vistalite drum set in the sizes of, I know, you know, the John Bonham thing is so over, what you call, everybody, you know, references, you know, the John Bonham snare drum or the John Bonham drum set. Well, there was many other drummers that played the 6.5 Superphonic or Vistalite, you know, drums, or, you know, Ludwig Thermogloss drums or Green Sparkle drums with a 26-inch bass drum. But this guy came in with a Vistalite kit with a 26, 10x14 tom, 16 and 18-inch floor toms, which were the Bonham sizes. Of course, he used amber, and these were blue. And I thought, man, you know, in all the years, and this is probably early 2000s, and up to that point, you know, all the years that I'd been working at the Trading Post and then in my own shop, I'd seen Vistalites, but I had not seen any with that particular configuration.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite. Outside of playing double bass, single bass kit, one rack, one bass drum, one rack, two floors, and those sizes.
Yeah.
Blue's my favorite color. I'm like, okay, this is a no-brainer. I think he bought those brand new and wasn't playing that kind of style anymore. He wanted something smaller, so he traded him, and I'm like, these are mine. So they were in good shape. I took them all apart, polished them inside and out. I still have those drums, and I have a great picture, what you just mentioned, up in the shop from some show I did. And I showed somebody the picture of that, and he said, I want to make that into a poster. He loved it so much, and he ended up making it into a poster, and then he ended up just giving it to me. Here you go, Sam. I made a poster of you behind your blue Vistalite kit. I'm just going to give it to you. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And I put it up on the wall in my shop next to all the, you know,
Yeah,
drummers.
it's a beautiful kit.
Yeah.
It's crazy, like how iconic like John Bonham and, you know, his sound and his playing as it really is, and you know, so many people, you know, try to imitate those sounds and tune their drums that way.
Yes.
You know, it's such an iconic sound.
One of my favorites, of course, Ian Pace from Deep Purple. Now, he also played, you know, sort of that configuration back in the day, but he actually went a step bigger. So he played a 26, but his rack tom was a 16-inch.
Okay.
And his floor toms were 18 and 20. Nobody ever talks about that.
Yeah.
I actually built myself a kit based around his kit, but even with a 28-inch bass drum with a 16, 18, and 20-inch floor toms. So Ian Pace, too, but, you know, Ian Pace doesn't quite get the accolades that Bonham does because Zeppelin was so, you know, I mean, you know, so legendary.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Deep Purple had lineup changes.
Yeah.
And then they broke up and all that. So Zeppelin was Zeppelin until Bonham died.
Right.
So Ian Pace, you know, definitely had that sort of same, you know, although his style was a little different, a little more like Buddy Rich classical style. So there's many other drummers that played those sizes and that kind of thing, but of course Bonham, because Zeppelin was Zeppelin, you know, and the sound. Actually, when I opened for Deep Purple, I sat down and talked with Ian Pace, and he was really super cool and gracious to me. And I asked him about, you know, Zeppelin and all that kind of stuff, and John Bonham, and he said, well, you know, Jimmy Page produced all those records, so of course, you know, they kind of, well, the drum sound was kind of featured. Whereas Deep Purple, you know, they did not produce themselves. Martin Birch was the producer. And, you know, they also had the keyboard. So everybody was in the same, you know, there's interviews with all the guys in the band. And they say, you know, that first record with the Mark II lineup called In Rock, everybody was in the studio when they were mixing it, and everybody kept turning the faders up because they wanted everybody they each wanted themselves to be louder.
Yeah,
they're pushing the limit.
I
So
see.
the drums, while they're there, they're pretty mixed in with all the Richie Blackmore's loud guitar and John Lord's loud keyboards and Ian Gillan's loud vocals. So the drums didn't stand out quite as much, although Ian played that same sort of configuration drum set.
Yeah. Have you heard of a documentary called Count Me In? It's on Netflix.
I haven't. I have not seen it, but I have heard of it. People have said, you got to check this thing out, and I've been lazy and I have not watched it.
Yeah, no worries. It's really good. Definitely, I would recommend checking it out.
I know.
There's a part in there. One of the guys talks about he got to play a gig with John Bonham, and when they did their sound check, just immediately everybody was like, "Whoa, that nobody sounds like that," And he said that after they got done with the sound check, he got off the drum set, and that he went over there and he like flicked the bass drum head on John Bonham's kit, and he said that it was tuned really tight and it was very resonant, where he was used to, like, the way his drum was tuned was so muffled and ready for the studio, and blankets and dampened inside of it, and yeah, when he flicked the drum set on John Bonham's drum set, it was just resonant and open, and the tone was totally different.
Yes, that is true, because if you play those big drums, especially like a 26, if you tune it too low, you almost can't hear it because the frequency gets muddled in with the bass guitar. So he tuned his drums rather on the higher side, and I think contrary to what a lot of drummers think, their drums are not. He tuned more like a jazz drummer, and because of the width of the drum heads and all that, you are still going to get somewhat low end because of the size of the drums. But he did tune on the higher side, and that's my drumming tuning style to this day.
Yeah.
I tune my bigger drums on kind of on the higher side, and I think most drummers that would sit behind my drum set wouldn't necessarily kind of maybe like the sound, but out in front, it's a different story, because the Jimmy Page theory is that distance equals depth. As the sound travels through the air, the more depth you hear. So if you're right, so when I'm tuning a drum, and for instance, when I tune a drum for a customer, and when they bring the drum in, it's kind of tuned real low and floppy.
Uh-huh.
And I put a new head on it or retune it for them. I kind of tune it up a little bit, and standing right next to it, I say, this drum is tuned a little higher than what you're used to. It might sound a little different, but get used to it, because out in front, away from the drum, it will sound deeper,
Mm-hmm.
and it will project louder.
Yeah. That's something that I think a lot of players don't think about is, what was going to sound like on the other side of the kit.
Especially if you're playing a show where you do not want to rely on the sound man. Because a lot of times you're playing and you get, a minimal sound check, if any sound check at all. And you don't want to necessarily have to rely on the sound man to EQ or make every drum, project. Mm-hmm. So I rely more on the live sound of the drum to project instead of relying on the sound guy,
Yeah.
And therefore a little bit of a higher tuning will give you a little more stage volume and project out into the audience.
That's really interesting. I haven't really got to play around with too many drum shells that are, those larger sizes, 26, 24, 28-inch bass.
It's not for everybody.
It's
a different feel.
Yeah, I could imagine, tuning is such a, it's such a vast, there's so much to know when it comes to tuning drums, I feel like. And so, yeah, like I said, I haven't messed around with those larger sizes, especially like the bass drums and stuff. I feel like with tuning, it's interesting. There's like a threshold, like, you have low where it's like slappy and flappy, and then you get it up tight where it kind of resonates, boom, it stays for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you get it really tight, then it's just like a quick slap, like
medium tight.
Yeah.
That's that stage where between where you're getting maximum resonance and where it's super tight, kind of medium tight.
Right.
That's kind of where I like to go. Not quite like a bebop drummer that just cranks it all the way, but a step below that and a step above maximum resonance. Now, having said all that, when you're in a band that has a sound man, and you're on the road, you're your own sound man, you can tune to more depth. You can tune your drums lower because you're getting a proper sound check. And if the board, whatever he needs to do to make the drums project a little more, EQ or whatever, making each tom equal so there's not one dropping out or whatever, the bass drum, I find that when if you have your own sound man, you can tune lower because you're going to get that proper, I'm repeating myself, that proper sound check.
Yeah.
And, after several shows, the sound man knows exactly, what it is and how to set the frequencies to where nothing's getting muddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
The bass, separating the bass drum from the bass guitar.
Yeah.
And the toms and all that. But when you're just relying on, local show and everything's mic'd up and okay, give it a go.
Right.
Tune your drums up a little bit and, they'll project.
That makes sense. Yeah. Being a little bit higher tuning, they probably cut, get separated from the bass and, yeah, so that's definitely something to think. And like you said, a lot of times with, local gigs, if you're playing with 3 or 4 other bands, your sound check is going to be real quick. You're going to get up there and
if any.
Yeah. They're going to get the vocal mics running and then they might do some adjustments after you guys get started or something. But yeah, it really just depends on the situation. And like I said too, with tuning, it's it's very there's so much to do there. And also too with with tighter drum heads, you get more rebound, you
more
can play
response,
a little faster, more response.
Yes.
Exactly. So just depending on what you're going for, I mean, there's so much to know about drum tuning. If you want your drums to be bouncy and play fast, or if you want them to sound, low and thuddy, or if you want them to be higher and cut through the mix better.
Yeah, and you'll go see sort of cliche genres or whatever, like a stoner rock or doom band, and I go to see like a band and everything's tuned down super low, right?
Yeah.
And then the drummer, his snare drum's tuned low. So I'm standing out in the room and I can't hear the snare drum because it's blending in with all the low end. It's not cutting through.
Yeah.
And I would make a suggestion to the drummer, hey, gosh, I just, you're slamming your snare. I could not hear the snare drum. The frequencies are all competing with each other. And he said, well, that's kind of how I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear that. If that's the way you like it, then that's the way you like it. But I could not hear your snare drum.
Yeah, it might be part of it too. Like you said, it sounds one way behind the kit, and then on the other side, it sounds totally different.
That's right.
They might not even realize.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so that's one important thing to think about.
That's why I have, when I'm trying out drummers are trying out drums, and they sit behind a kit, and then they try it, and then I said, okay, now stand out in front of the kit. Stand out in front, 10 or 15 feet away. Let me play it. And listen to the way it sounds at a distance, and you'll be able to, hear the true sound of what it sounds like. Oh, yeah. And they do. More times than not, they like the way that I have it tuned.
Right on. What are some of your preferences as far as, let's say, coated and clear heads, or, what kind of cymbals you like to use, or, just to get specific sounds that you're after?
I mean, generally, coated or clear heads going to be typically maybe give you a little more... maybe a little more top end. Depends on the thickness of the head, though, too.
Yeah.
Coated head might have a slightly warmer sound as far as the stick hitting the head.
Yeah.
Not quite as much stick hitting the attacky kind of sound, but it depends on the thickness of the head as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cymbals, I prefer Paiste cymbals myself. They have that sort of glassy, high-end frequency that really cuts above, amplified music. And that was the whole idea when Paiste came out with that series in the early 70s. Zildjian, Sabian, all the companies make great cymbals, but they're just different frequencies that, for instance, Zildjian, their regular pro grade, state of the industry for all those years back to the 40s, a little more mid-rangey.
Yeah.
A little more full-bodied mid-range. Paiste. But every brand now has all the different sort of grades, like
sure.
A Zildjian, K Zildjian, more low end on the Ks,
mm-hmm.
sitting more in the mix instead of coming on top of the mix, that kind of thing. But I'm kind of a Paiste guy, And those guys, like Bonham and Ian Pace and Cozy Pal, those guys used those cymbals, and I was really attracted to that sound. Not to take away from any of the others, they all make great equipment. They all make great stuff.
Totally, yeah, I agree. I've noticed with I haven't played a lot of Paiste cymbals, but the ones that I have gotten to play, I've noticed that they're a lot of times a lot thicker than some of the other cymbals that I see, and it's like if you're not used to that.
Yes, but they make different thicknesses as well.
Oh,
Paiste,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
Paiste makes thin, medium, heavy. Just all the companies make different weights.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Thicknesses.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I tend to like sort of the medium or medium thin cymbals.
Yeah,
kind of the mediums.
I'm kind of in there too. Yeah, I like where we're a little bit softer.
You don't have to hit it as hard to get the response.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And drummers these days it's much different than it was in the 80s, 90s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Even heavy rock drummers now are leaning more towards thinner cymbals.
Yeah.
The thicker cymbals, they're so high end and pingy and can be grating to the ear.
Yeah.
So the lower pitch cymbals don't quite stick out as much. They sit more in the mix.
Yeah.
But you don't have to hit them as hard, and they can, and especially like the doom bands,
Mm-hmm.
they take up space in the mix.
Yeah.
They take up more space in the mix.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I'm a Paiste guy.
Right on. Yeah, I feel like in those like softer, thinner cymbals, like you said, you don't have to hit them as hard, get as much response out of them. But if you're one of those guys that hits really, really hard, I feel like maybe those cymbals aren't going to last you as long.
That would be true.
Yeah.
That would be true. Thicker cymbals generally last a little longer.
Yeah, no doubt. So, ups and downs, there's different advantages and disadvantages to different products. But, like you said, the companies, they all kind of do a good job of, I feel like, getting the different, tiers of what you're looking for. And so there's definitely quite a selection. And if you don't know what sounds you're looking for, it can be kind of a daunting task to sort that out.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I remember working at Guitar Center in the drum shop. A lot of times, I have customers come in and don't know exactly what they're looking for, and you kind of have to figure out what it is that they're going for, and and kind of point them in the right direction, which is kind of a fun part
you
of.
Ask them what they're looking for, and you kind of point them in a certain direction.
Yeah.
So we just finished up the video.
Right on. Yeah, so the video we just did for you, we did Walk With Me by your band Fireball Sunset. Yeah, we got that set up. You guys have a YouTube channel now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a little late in the coming, but better late than never.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll put a link for that video in the description of this video when I post it. And before I let you go, is there anything else do you think we should talk about? Or
you asked me at the very beginning about Fireball Sunset. I formed this band probably around 2016, having moved here in Eugene in 2012, 2013. I actually did join a hard rock band with a very, very, very short stint. And we did play. I played a couple shows with them. We did play one good show up at the Lynn County Fair in about 2015, opening for Grand Funk Railroad, and that didn't quite work out for me or the band. So I moved on and I formed my own band. I just put a bunch of guys together, and we started playing shows around 2017. There's not a heck of a whole lot of places to play in Eugene for just straight up hard rock bands.
Mm-hmm.
You have your metal bands, you have your blues bands, you have your jam bands, but like sort of 70s influenced hard rock original bands. Not that. Although we have, we played several shows at Old Nick's, Lucky's. Sessions, and we have a show coming up here at Wow Hall at the end of March with Alamance and a band called 2106 and another band called Password Firebird. Should be a pretty kick-ass hard rock show. But
so that's in March?
That's at the end of March 26th, which is a Saturday night. Come on out, and it'll be great to get on a nice big stage with a good sound system. And so, of course, we all know what happened at the beginning of, 2020 now?
Yeah, pandemic.
So that put a damper on, everybody, every band,
absolutely.
Everybody, everything. And so we're just we continued to rehearse. I have a space at my shop, so we continue to rehearse safely and writing new songs and learning a bunch of cover tunes. But we're, thing is writing our own material. And now here we are trying, and at the beginning of 22, trying to get, start to play again.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, but we did play at Sam Bond's on Halloween, a pretty good show, good turnout, and everybody rocked pretty hard with us. The band is sounding really good now. We're super tight. We have tons of new material, but it was time to do a video. And with the help of you, and sometimes, things feel just right. I know that I've been needing to do this for the band, and you came into the shop, and, apart from being a drummer yourself, you said, indicated that you do, video stuff. And I thought, hey, I really like this dude. And I think that's the first time I met you.
Yeah, I think so too.
I really like this guy.
I've been in and out of the shop here
right,
and there, but
that's the first time we really introduced, and you gave me
Yeah.
your card, and I thought I had a good feeling about you. And I thought, okay, I really need to do a video. So that's when I contacted you and hey, let's do this thing. I had an idea in my mind of what I wanted to do, how to produce it and direct and produce, and for something super, super basic, at the shop in our jam room, and we did it, and we finished it, and it came out really good thanks to you, and
absolutely,
and spent some time with me, and so when we finally have a little visual stuff that I could shoot out to clubs and booking agents and all that, and hopefully help get some shows. We're dying to play out. This band is tight, and we're ready to show. I think we're probably, I want to say we're one of the, if not the best, true hard rock bands in Eugene. And I say that with due respect to everybody else, but we definitely have that kind of 70s, sound. Not necessarily sounding like any of those bands, but we kind of have our own thing influenced. Take all those influences, make it our own.
Right on, man. Well, thank you so much for being here, Sam. Like I said,
Fireball Sunset.
Check out Sam's band, and like I said, I'll post a link to the video in the description of this video. Sam Adato's drum shop here in West Eugene, and I think that's it, man.
Thanks a lot, Charles. It was a pleasure being on your show, and looking forward to having you come out and do a live video when we play our show at Wow Hall.
Yeah,
we'll
would love
come
that.
out and we'll do some live stuff. We'll make another video of some on stage stuff.
Okay, sweet, man. Sounds
right
good,
on,
brother.
man. All right, rock on.
Thanks a lot.
You got it.